Yeah, baby, we're back. What's happening? Well, guess what? Today we're going to put an air conditioner in, and hopefully I'll get to be able to put in a max air fan too. I've been nervous about this one. Ugh. Cutting two big holes in the roof, and then some of the stuff I read online about that air conditioner is that your ceiling can only be so thick or the plenum doesn't fit and all this, so it's a little nerve-wracking. But we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And I gotta fix a couple of problems that I created in the van first before I go cutting holes in the roof. So yeah, that's the plan. Cut holes in the roof, put an air conditioner in, and put a max air fan in. The only bad thing is right now, since I don't have any electrical set up in there, I don't have any way to test it. But hey, I got to get all the roof cutting out of the way first because of all the metal shavings before I finish out anything on the interior. So that's what we're going to do. So enough yakking. Let's get cracking. So we're going to put the air conditioner back here. I was a little worried because of this support. This support here is like 18 inches to this point, but if you go all the way back into here, it becomes like 32 inches. And I measured the bottom of the air conditioner, and it looks like it'll fit as long as I go as far forward as possible. So I had to clean up some mess I made up here. All this stuff that I put on here to quiet these wall panels. Well, I didn't think it through before I went and stuck them all over the ceiling, because I got some here and I got some back over there. This one came off pretty cleanly for whatever reason, but the other one's a mess. I gotta clean that up first because I don't want goo all inside my cuts. So I'll show you that, and then what I'm going to attempt to do to clean it. So there's the big mess. This is all gummy, gooey, sticky butyl. Nasty. So I'm going to try the oscillator tool with the flexible scraper blade on there after I try to hand pick as much of this off as possible and see what that does. So it would seem the oscillator with the blade, flexible blade attachment is working quite well. Ooey gooey. Yippee. So this is the air conditioner unit I'm planning on putting in there. It's big. It's the Gidrox brand. There's not a lot of stuff online about installing one of these things, but I did hours of research on this guy, and probably one of the main reasons why you don't see a lot of information about this particular one is that the components in here are not certified. And where that causes a problem for some people is, depending on your insurance, is that your vehicle may not be covered with this particular product because of that. But I did reach out to the company, and they did say that they are working on getting certifications for this. But after all my digging around in here, looking at this guy, it's built identically to several different manufacturers' brands. And so this one also ran about $100 cheaper, and I could use that $100 elsewhere in the van, and I'm not overly worried about insurance just yet. My understanding too is this guy will fit in just a 14 by 14 hole, the standard size hole that you can put max air fans in and things like that. So that's why I went with this guy. So I'm going to get this thing out of the box, take a look at it, and get a couple of extra measurements before I go mark anything in the van and cut it out. So I took the cover off of this bad boy because the instructions weren't very clear how to connect my power cable. And this is the beast of the power cable, 19 feet. So I've been out here for about an hour looking all over this thing, trying to figure that out. and I finally got it figured out. It'll wire in from underneath on there, but you can see here, these instructions are awful. Tells you cut a hole, put a gasket on, put lap sealant on the gasket, stick the air conditioner in there, put these little foam blocks on there for support. You're all good to go. It doesn't tell you jack squat about wiring this up other than this little picture right here. And even though this says exterior wiring, it leaves you to believe that you need to cut the gasket in order to route your cable out and then back in, instead of doing it this method where it goes outside. So yeah, good times. But the power cable actually does come right out of here and won't interfere with the bracket or anything like that, so I can do my interior wiring just like I wanted to without having to cut the gasket. So I'll show you all that here in a little bit. But what else I wanted to show you too is this unit has that and that, which is really nifty, because if I ever need to get this thing recharged, that's the compressor there. If I ever need to recharge the system, it is serviceable, which is pretty nifty. And I'm going to show you something else real quick. So you can see here that the compressor is mounted on some rubber bushings with some springs to give this thing a little bit of movement and help it stay quiet, which is really awesome. And considering that this thing is all going to be sitting on really dense foam, should be pretty quiet like they say. And everybody that's had one of these so far has said that they're very quiet. Now here's the inverter. So it essentially, this thing still runs 120 volts, but you hook it up DC straight to battery. This is going to convert everything or invert everything to 120 volt AC power to let this thing run. So it's, because it's got that inverter in there, you can just hook it directly up to a battery. How sweet. So now that I unnecessarily took the cover off this guy, I'm going to put it back on after I wasted an hour doing that and looking this thing over and reading awful instructions. Also found out I need to go to the hardware store so I can get some more disposable paintbrushes, because I got to paint the edges of that raw metal and where I scraped all that butyl off so it stripped the paint. So I'm going to have to paint all that too. And I got one brush left, so I got to go run the hardware store. Then we'll come back here, cut a hole in the roof, and put this guy on there. Yay me. Always a delay. Always. All right. Leaving the hardware store, and during the 15 minutes I was in there, it got all cloudy. So I'm hoping that we don't get any rain. I looked at the forecast before I got started with this thing today, and they said a 10% coverage. Now tomorrow is supposed to be a different story. Tomorrow is supposed to be my test to seal any leaks after I do all this stuff. But oh man, these clouds are not looking nice today. So I don't know, it'll take me about 15-20 minutes to get back home, and then we'll see if we get to carry on. Yay me.
15 minutes later.
So I'm just getting my template up here. I've got my center point marked right there, and I've adjusted this back and forth so that way my frame, which is this is going to be the bracket that holds the air conditioning unit to the ceiling. And I wanted to make sure it can clear this beam right here, because I'm going to do some framing around that later, and that beam might interfere. So I wanted to get it back off of there just a little bit. So I just went about 1.5 inches or so back, lined it up on my center point. Honestly, I think I want to scoot it a little bit further forward. Get it centered. Make sure we're square along the corrugation. And then now we're going to mark this bad boy and drill a couple holes, just like we did with the windows. And then we're going to get up on top and cut it all out. Oh no! And again, Don't be like me. Wear safety goggles. I still haven't found any that fit over my glasses yet that I can see through, because my eyesight's awful. We got holes. Just like last time, I'm going to tape a box up here just so I can catch as much metal shaving as possible. I reckon I can sweep out the floor if I need to. So I'm just going to line this up just like I did when we did our windows on those four corners, and then just trace this thing out on here and then cut it out. All right, so we're good there. Good enough, as they would say. Or I would say. Maybe you would too. All right, now let's hope all the box catches everything. Got a big hole in the roof again. And this time, you noticed before, I had forgotten to put tape on here. So I did. I scarred it up pretty good in a couple of spots, but that's all right. It didn't get all the way through the metal, so I'm okay. But first, I want to double check my gasket. We're good. We're just going to center that guy all the way around the edge when we go to put that on. So that looks good. So go ahead and file all these sharp edges. I'm just going to spray a little rubbing alcohol on my rag here, and I'm just going to wipe up all of this real good, clean it up really nice, because I'm going to put some little shims down in here. And also, since we're going, that gasket's got adhesive on the back of it, we want to make sure it has a nice tight seal on that. So during my search, I was looking for something to shim this with, and I found 3D printed templates that go all the way around the hole there that looked like they would have worked great, but they were like 70 bucks. They were a little expensive. So I found a cheaper option that was $25, and it's this. And all this is a piece of PVC lattice, is it. And it's just cut up. And these just fit right down in here, so that way you have a decent seal. And I want to glue these guys into place. I'm going to put this guy down first, and I'm going to kind of mark on here. Well, actually, I can just put it straight to the edge, and it overlaps a little bit, so that's nice. It makes it easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these into place. I'm going to use this E6000. This stuff is amazing. I love this stuff. It's permanent, and it literally sticks to anything. So all I'm going to do is glue these into here, and then when I put the gasket down on top of it, I'm going to just put lap sealant all the way around it, so that way it's all good and sealed off. But this will help keep from having to compress that stuff way too much, and it fills in that gap a little bit. Little dab is all you need of this stuff. This stuff is truly amazing. Press it down in there, all nice like. There's one. So if you wanted to save a little money yourself for these things, you can go down to Lowe's and get yourself a piece of PVC lattice, and it's literally only $9 for an 8-foot stick. And this E6000 sets up incredibly fast. So once I get it in, I say it sets up incredibly fast. The stuff won't be moving for too much longer. That's dry enough for me, so I'm going to wipe it down with a little bit more rubbing alcohol. Before I undo it, we're going to dry fit it one more time so I can kind of make my little plan. Right there. Looks good to me. And this is a good sturdy neoprene type of foam. It's quite impressive. It's got a lot of good density to it. It's going to take a lap sealant real nice. Ooh, that is sticky. You only get one shot, put that down. It's down. So I got the Dicor lap sealant. I hear it's pretty good. Never used it, but here we go. Now I had found a leak in my van. It was near the sliding door and the sealant was missing, or it was cracked, just like that. So if you're building your own van, just take a moment to look around while you're up here doing this stuff at the top and see if you need to do anything like that. So I see some bare metal and I see some cracks there. Even though the lap sealant doesn't match the paint, I don't care. I don't want leaks. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit of gunk in that, and then she should be good. So while that stuff dries a little bit, I'm going to go down inside and paint that raw edge. Yeah. And then we're going to heave that big bad boy up here and stick it in the hole. The lap sealant is now up there drying. So in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and just touch up all the paint on the corner here with a little primer, a little paint, and wait 15 minutes in between the primer and the paint. So that'll be a total of a half hour plus however long it takes me to get this part done. And then that should be enough time, hopefully, for that lap sealant to dry a little bit so we can throw that big old fatty up on the roof. Not too shabby. Doesn't really look like I'm going to be able to get the max air fan put in today. The wind's kicking up. The clouds are getting a little crazy. It's kind of getting late in the day. But because the wind's kicking up, I'm not going to be able to take the camera up there with me. So I'm just going to show you what I'm going to wind up doing. That lap sealant is still it's really, really soft right now. So I'm going to give it a little bit longer. But these are foam blocks made out of the same stuff as that gasket is. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to heave this thing up on the roof. You're not supposed to tilt it, but there's no way I'm going to have to tilt it to get it up there. I had to tilt it to get it out of the house because whenever Amazon dropped it off, they put it inside and they had the box tilted. So we'll test it all later. I'm hoping it works whenever I get it all done, but I'm still not going to be able to test it until I get the electrical system in the van. But anyway, all that being said, I'm going to go heave this thing up there whenever that lap sealant dries a little bit more and just place it in the hole. And then we're going to mount the bracket under there. And then these are just going to go underneath. These are just support blocks for it, so that way it's not wobbly in the hole. And I'm not exactly sure where they're going to get placed yet, but that's just as simple as peeling this off here, sticking it on the bottom. That's it. So I'll wait a little bit longer for that lap sealant to set up, and then we'll heave this thing up there and we'll show you how we're going to stick it underneath there with that bracket. So you should have saw me struggling to get this guy up here. It was not fun. But Fatty McGee's up there. Now let me show you the back. That's why it pays to measure, because I was really afraid that that thing was going to hang off the back. And it's about 8 inches in from the corner, so that is good. It was in. Now we're going to put the bracket on. I'll show you how all that's going to be. So here's what all is in the hardware kit. A couple of bolts. These are both 1/2 inch. These are to connect the wires, the terminals. These are the studs, nuts, and washers and all that good stuff to put the bracket up. I want to put the shortest ones in there. There's two different sizes, but I'm going to put the shortest one for now until I frame all this in. And then we'll see about going the longest one. Now, my understanding is that everybody complains about the height or the length of these little bolts here, or not really all thread, but whatever you want to call these things, that they're really short, and that the max that you can do on your ceiling is 3 inches thick, which I should be able to stay within that. I'm going to put some finer insulation in here and then some 1x4 framing. So that way, you know, it doesn't get too thick and I still have maximum headroom. But that's for another time. And then it comes with a few zip ties and some things where you can secure it to the wall. That would be the power cable. And then it comes with some little stainless screws to put the unit's face on. And I'll show you that here in a little bit too, but I'm not going to install the face because I'm not ready for it just yet. So let's get that bracket on here and get this thing secured to the roof, because it's just sitting there right now. And to be quite frank, I got to feed my fat and I'm getting kind of hungry. So I want to get her done today. All right, let's do it. So I'll give you a quick look in here, is like, because you won't be able to see it when I put this on the tripod, but there, that brass fitting right there is where one stud goes in. There's another one in this corner. And then up in these little holes, there's another one. So we're going to run those studs up in there and then put the bracket on it. Well, as it turns out, all the studs are the same size. Doesn't really matter at this point. The nice thing about this thing is too, is once you've got your air conditioner unit up on the gasket, you can easily pick it up, move it around, shift it, get it square, all that good stuff. So get these guys run up in there without cross-threading it. Apparently those are brass, so it's softer than the steel. Oh wow, that's not fun. It doesn't want to grab. Let's try this one. Oh boy, I get to fight this guy. So I'm going to fight that and get those studs in there. I wound up having to cut that a little bit. My hole wasn't quite big enough for that stud to clear, but it's in there now. And then that other stud, it was bent. As I was running it in there, it was wobbling side to side. So thank goodness they gave me extra. So let's put the bracket on. Bracket goes on this direction because of where the studs lie. And because they didn't put the nuts up in there the right way, it is a bit of a fight getting this on here because nothing really quite lines up. But there it is. So now I'm going to run my washers and nuts and all that stuff on it. Now we'll just run these on up. It's going to make my arm tired. That part's kind of janky. You can only get it like that. I do have a pass-through socket. Maybe I'll try that. So a pass-through socket, better than a deep socket in my opinion. I don't have an extension, but it's designed to let a bolt like that pass through. And let's see here. Looks like we got enough space. So I'm rolling in with that. Anchor down. As soon as I'm tightening that, I'm actually feeling it. It's compressing that gasket a little bit. So I'm not getting to gird it down with a bunch of like I normally would. So it's a good thing they put the stop nuts on there and a lock washer. So the curious part about this is how tight do I go? And is it going to make it cockeyed outside? I don't know. Now I did see that the drain holes on here for the condensation's in the back of the unit. So I am going to suck the back end down a little bit more, let it tilt backwards, so that way water and stuff runs off the back instead of going all the way down the front of the van and running down the windshield. But then again, that probably won't matter, to be honest, because this thing's never going to be perfectly level. Wherever I park, I don't have jacks, none of that stuff. Don't want it. Had that in a travel trailer. It was awful. Constantly having to adjust. Yeah, you know what I mean. So there we go. It's in. It's not going anywhere. But I already did find something else, just like the back windows. Without that little bit of corrugation and a little weight up there. See, hear that? So when I go to do all my framing in here, I'll glue up some wood up here and screw to that to help stabilize that. Yeah, she's installed. Now I'll show you all the rest of the goodies. So, like I said, this Gidrox brand didn't have a whole lot online about it, probably because it's not certified and all that good stuff. So the most popular one that I've seen so far was the Out-Equip brand. And from everything I've seen about Out-Equip, this is pretty well identical to it. So, remember we were talking about the power cable in the beginning here and how the instructions were goofy. Well, here's where you connect the power. It comes right out of here. So the way the instructions read, and I'm going to go over this in good detail because this is what everybody else glossed over on all their how-to videos on this stuff. There's a billion of these things up here to show you how to cut the hole, drop the thing in the hole, and then put the bracket on, but nothing, no one talks about this. So my impression is that you cut this gasket here on the back side, which is right here. My phone flipped around, but that's the back end of the van right there. So you're supposed to cut that and then run your power through there, because apparently everybody seemed to think that you hook up the power from the outside of the unit and run it inside here. Well, after digging around and messing with this for about an hour, I found that that is if you're going to run your wire externally. So this right here is just simply going to come through here, and I'm just going to drop it outside the bracket. These little guys hook up to the plate that goes up here. So that's pretty simple. We'll look at that here in a little bit. But right now we're going to hook all this guy up. So this is the power cable. One side has a fuse on it. The other side does not. This side is where we'll hook up here, because the fusible link is far enough away that that would wind up being buried in all the sealing later. So we're going to do this. Then the fusible link will be accessible down there where I'm going to put all the power system later. So that way I got the extra protection. I'll show you how we'll wire that end up at another time. But let's head back up top, and we're going to put this on that. So the instructions say, of course, hook red to red, black to black, and use these little guys. So we're going to do just that. Run that there. Then hook this feller into it. Run that nut down. And then we're going to do the same thing with the blacking. Then I'll crank that down really tight with my ratchet and my wrench. I'll find this stuff first. Let's see. Okay. Are you serious? Oh wow, the bolt is actually, that's weird. So the nut is 1/2 inch. The bolt appears to be metric. Well, let me go get a socket. So it turns out the bolt is a 14 millimeter with a 1/2 inch nut. And I'm gonna crank that down as tight as I can get that thing. At this irritatingly awkward angle. I do wish I had a crimp set that big, because I would just strip those and crimp them. That's redonkulous. That was so dumb. So the instructions say to just put a whole lot of tape on that. Honestly, I'd rather do heat shrink, but I don't have any of that available. And this is going to be temporary for now. I'm probably going to reroute this or something. So right now, all I'm going to do is put a little of that on there and then tape the crap out of it. Definitely get heat shrink if you're going to do this. This tape method is not my favorite way of doing things, but this is temporary at best until I get ready to do everything on the inside. And I'm only protecting this for right now, just so that way maybe once I get the electrical in, I can give it a test, make sure everything's operating, and then I'll redo this with some heat shrink, because that's obviously the far better way to go here than taping this up. There's the jankiness. It's all taped up all janky like. Dumb. So these little guys stick up on the roof, and then you run this cable tie through there like so, and then you suck the wire down to it, holds it in place until you get your sealing and stuff in. So I'm gonna stick a bunch of these little guys on there. So I got a little alcohol on my rag. I'm just gonna wipe down the metal up here, so that way these little stick-on doohickeys can stick. And then we're going to just run it right down this rail, right down there. Honestly, don't have any idea how long these are going to stay. Probably one hot day is going to do it, and it's going to fall. Which is why I'm going to put several up here. And I got them little fellers up there. We're just going to zip tie this guy up. So as I was fishing this through here, this, if you can see it, that's pretty sharp. Yeesh. So there's a little foam sealant on there. So what I've done is I got this little piece of PEX. I went and cut off of a spare piece that I had, and I split it. And I'm just going to put that right over the top of this. And give myself a little room. Open it up and slip it in there. That way I don't have something sharp that's going on, even though it's got a protector on it. There we go. Even though it's got this protective casing on there, conduit, whatever you want to call the stuff, that way it keeps it from rubbing. I think I'm actually going to go cut another little piece and put it right there. That's kind of sharp vibrations. I'm going to make it do all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to go do that and stick it on there. So just to show you what I done gone and done did. PEX, PEX, PEX. That one doesn't need any tape. It's going to stay. That's not a problem. So we're good. So for now, until I get ready to do my electrical, I'm just going to roll this guy up out of the way. Just put a little zip tie on there and then put it on that cargo hook for now. That'll keep it up out of the way, especially when I go to do the subfloor. So now we got our wiring all out of the way. I'm sure I'll have to undo all of this when I go to do the ceiling. Take that connection loose, because I'm pretty sure that that's all going to wind up having to go on the other side of this bracket. But at least that gets it out of my way for now. I'll come back in here in a minute and clean all that up with some snips, but you know, it is what it is. So comes with a little remote, so you can go beep, 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 beep from the comfort of your bed or from the comfort of the driver's seat, whatever you want to do. And this is the finish unit. It goes right up there like so, and we'll get to do all of that good stuff after I get the ceiling done. It's got cool directional vents on there. You can turn them around, direct the air wherever you want it. And one thing that was surprisingly cool about this is, take a look. It's made of metal. It's finally something that is not plastic. Wow, how cool is that? It's all metal, it's all nice and cool looking. So yeah, I'm all excited to get that part done. So I'm going to snip these up and we'll get out of here. So that was a pretty long day. Wasn't too bad to do, at least for now. It'll be much more interesting once I get all the ceiling and everything in. But you know, cutting the hole, not a huge deal. Just a lot of time in between. Had to wait for primer to dry, paint to dry, and then for lap sealant to set up enough to throw that big thing up there. And then getting it up there was not fun. I don't recommend it. But what else you gonna do? You know, it's a high roof van. I got further to get it up there. But it wasn't too bad. I just wish that after all the hours I put in looking at it, or looking into this particular unit, that people would have gone into better detail about how it's done. I mean, there's plenty of good detail out there, but that electrical connection, that was the thing right there. And if you get anything out of this video, it's that, because the instructions were not clear and everybody just glosses over that part of it. So, you know, if you're going to do an instructional video on one of these, don't gloss that part over. That part's important. Anyway, so that wasn't too bad. Unfortunately, I didn't get to the point where I could put in the max air fan today, so that's going to have to wait till next weekend, because it's starting to get kind of late in the day here. So I don't have enough time to get up there and do that. So we'll do that another day. Hopefully this thing all tests out nicely, because I did have to tilt it to get it out of the house. And then trying to heave it up there, of course, I went more than 5 degrees or whatever they said. I think 5 to 15 degrees. But I know that's mainly so everything can just settle in. Anytime you get anything with refrigerant in there, you got to let it sit level for X amount of hours, typically 24 hours, so that way everything functions properly. But yeah, I'm sure that connection is going to have to be redone whenever we go to finish out the ceiling, but that's fine. That's easy to do. It's just a couple of bolts and all that. That big tapey ugly mess up there is just temporary for now. I'll put some proper heat shrink on there. I just didn't have any on hand right now, and I just need to get all that out of the way. So, but yeah, the air conditioner is in. I'm looking forward to putting this guy on there so it can function after I get electrical and floor and everything else. So, stick around. We'll come up with some other stuff for sure. There's plenty to do on here. So, I want to go clean out my mess and go relax as the sun comes down. I'll catch you guys later.